If you don't know what your priority is, it's going to be hard to have specificity around the goals that you want to create. When you write these goals down, you are going to commit to the habits and behaviors that you need to take to achieve them, because the goal sets the direction. The habits and the behaviors make it happen.
Welcome to PowHERhouse, the show for women who are building wealth, scaling businesses, and leading with unapologetic power. I'm your host, Nicholle Overcamp. Let's get into today's conversation.
Hello, my powerhouses. So it is December, and one of my favorite things to do in the month of December is start planning for the next 12 months. This has, for I don't know even how many years I have done this in a row, but I am so methodical about how I reflect about the last 12 months, what I want the next year to look like, and really go through this whole vision board process. And I have found that when I not only plan for the next year, reflect, and really think deeply about what didn't go well, what did go well, but more importantly, create like an actual vision board. And you might even be able to see it right there. There it is, hanging here in my home office. I put it where I can see it every single day. Because since I started this practice, I have found that not necessarily in 1 year, but over the course of 3 years, this stuff actually happens. It works. It sounds a little woo-woo, especially coming from your friendly financial advisor over here. But I promise you, this stuff is so impactful. It works. It reminds me whenever I look at it, what is significant, why it's significant, and also why I'm working so damn hard. I think everyone listening can relate to the fact that we have those days that we kind of question what it is that we're doing and why we put ourselves through the ringer sometimes, because I don't know, business is hard. But when I look at that vision board and it's like, oh, yeah, this is what I'm creating, or these are the opportunities I'm going to have, or this is the trip I want to take my family on, it allows that really hard day to feel easier. And part of what invoked this whole session in the first place too is that this year particularly, I felt a little icky about my progress and what I didn't do this year. I was sitting in my Savannah office a couple of weeks ago, and I have all of these huge Post-it notes, the big, I don't know how big the sheets are, but you know what I'm talking about, poster size, all over my walls. And I had different sections for each team member. I had what I wanted to do personally, things I wanted to accomplish, our goals. And the first sad thing is that I put those Post-it notes on my wall a year ago, and they're still there. So there's that. But also, as I was sitting there staring at these, I could not reconcile the fact that it had actually been a year. I don't know about you, but this year for me felt like quicksand. I mean, I blinked my eyes 3 times and it was over. I don't know what the hell happened. I was in a vortex and here we are. And so the fact that I still had those up there from a year ago and it felt like yesterday was a little alarming. But the other thing that I was really quite disappointed in with myself is the fact that I didn't really do a lot that I thought I would, and a lot that I actually set out to accomplish on the business side. I had very high aspirations for doing a lot more video content this year, really revamping the brand, everything that we're doing on the PowHERhouse side, our coaching and education company. And at the end of the day, none of that happened. I mean, I just have to call a spade a spade. I totally dropped the ball because my plan for that strategically was to do it on Fridays. And what happened this entire year is I was running chaotic days. I had so many client meetings on Fridays. It didn't leave any time for creative work. It didn't leave time for working on the business or coming up with content of what this new vision for PowHERhouse was going to look like. And I think every Friday I said to myself, oh my gosh, next Friday will be better, or I have to do better at blocking this time. And I didn't. And part of the problem this year was me. I am the theme song, the Taylor Swift, like, hi, I'm the problem, it's me. I caused a lot of my own chaos this year because I failed to have some difficult conversations with the team. And that really, my delay in having those conversations, especially with my COO for about 9 months of the year, screwed me over, right? And so I think what is really important to own is that the more we avoid hard conversations, the worse we make our own life. Not their life, but our life. And that was something hard that I had to swallow, because I'm constantly talking about how important it is to have the hard conversation, to say the things and rip off the Band-Aid, whatever the case may be, because as soon as you have that hard conversation, everything gets so much easier after, right? It's like you can take a breath of fresh air, you can exhale. And I wasn't doing that. And I wasn't doing it because I felt too overwhelmed to have the conversation, and I didn't know where to start. And so because I chose to avoid that, because I didn't feel like I had a perfect starting point versus just starting messy and having that conversation with her, I avoided it. And in avoiding so, forced me to take on a lot more work than I should have. I wasn't asking for help in an appropriate way. And there goes my year, right? So there's a lot of things we did, a lot of things I did accomplish that I wanted to, no doubt, but that one stuck with me and it just didn't feel good. And so it was a huge lesson that I had to digest and recognize that I don't want that to happen again. And so I am so committed to taking more time than usual this year to force myself to sit, to focus, to go through the process, because the process works. But what's going to be different this year is I'm going to have extra accountability. I am going to talk at our annual planning meeting to my team about my shortcomings, what I was disappointed in, but importantly, how I need them to hold me to a higher standard, and they need to also act in a higher standard of accountability so that it doesn't happen again. Because if I'm not doing what I need to do, it's hurting not just me, but the company as a whole, of which reflects my employees. And I don't want to do that. It never feels good. So, all of that to say, I am in it. I am in it. I am committed. I am owning my failures and the wins. This year was a great year for us. It's our best year yet. We are up 36% in profit, not revenue. So that feels good. So I didn't screw it all up, but I just didn't do all the things I wanted to do. And for those of you who may be feeling some of the same feels, it is one of those important things to recognize that we are capable of those things, but often we're the problem, like it or not. So let's dive into it, shall we? So thinking about the next 12 months, I would encourage you to listen to this podcast episode. And I actually have another vision workshop that I did record on a podcast about a year ago. So you might want to go back and find that one too. But think about listening to this and then blocking your calendar for at least 2 to 4 hours minimally, where you are going to go through planning exercises, maybe the vision worksheet. I'm going to provide you guys with some resources and really do a deep dive into everything I talk about today and then what you want to happen for the next 12 months. Because the worst thing you can do is start planning for January in the next 12 months. You want to get the head start now. You want to start doing the positive changes now. So you get that head start so that you don't wake up feeling like you're already behind. That is something that I have learned from experience is a horrible feeling, and you never want to hit the ground running when it feels like you're already late. All right. It is like hitting the snooze button 100 times when you've got somewhere important to be. Don't do it to yourself. Block the time now while you're thinking about it, while you can give yourself, your business, your employees that gift. So when I go through this, I try to not just block time, but also do it in a space where I am not distracted and where it feels creative, fun, a little bit different. So often I will do this in part, maybe at a cool coffee shop. I'll get a hotel room. I'll go somewhere over the night. And I also do an evening with my girlfriends where we all create the vision board together, which is fun because we all talk out loud about the things that we want to do, why we want to do them. But it's just that extra sliver of accountability too, because if your friends are like my friends, we are not afraid to call each other out on our shit. So I personally like having that layer of open honesty and vulnerability as well. And it is nice to talk about these things and hear everyone else's perspective, because often we are just not alone on this, right? So for what it's worth, I think that is an important thing. So now, as you think about the next 12 months, put yourself in a space where you are also also going to be comfortable with vulnerability, with true and open honesty with yourself, and try to honor everything that happened, good, bad, ugly, but don't judge it. Just recognize it, digest it, and come up with a plan moving forward. I don't want this to be something that you get stuck on or feel disappointment or shame about. We cannot change the past, but we have all the power in the world to change the future. But you want to start that with positive momentum and high energy, high frequency, not negative energy. Okay. So typically these 6 areas that I am looking at before I go to set my goals or what it is that we're going to accomplish are these truths that I try to digest. What were the successes? That is number 1. I write that down first because I forget the wins because I dwell on the losses, right? Those are things I want to correct, I want to change, but the successes, I breeze right by those things, but we shouldn't. We need to know what we did well, number 1, so that we can cheer our team on because they need to hear that for motivation. But then also give yourself a pat on the back. This year wasn't a total loss. You probably accomplished way more than you remember you accomplished. And that in itself is significant. You do need to celebrate that because you're worthy of that recognition, that celebration, and that honor of all your hard work this year. So what were your successes? Write all of them down. Your misses, patterns, people, priorities, and of course, yourself. So first, let's start with the successes and your wins. I talked a little bit about that 5 seconds ago, of course, but what it is that you want to think about when you're writing down your successes is try to look at all areas of your life because they are all integrated into your business success at the end of the day, right? And sometimes when we're planning for the next year and reflecting, we only think business, but truly, I want this to be about your whole self because you're a whole person and we can't look at fragments if we want overall success. So what went well this year in your business, with your money, your finances, in your leadership, and in your life? And I'd encourage you to then, after writing that down, why did it work well? And what worked well? Can you double down on any of those things to do even better next year? What were some of the ingredients to make sure that you continue them on, that you keep those things? Sometimes when things are working, we don't realize what's working and we stop doing them. So this is your opportunity to really recognize what worked well and focus on keeping them and then potentially building on that, but importantly, being consistent around it. Perhaps it was somebody you hired too that was a big win. What were their characteristics? How did they change your culture or your workload or your flow? Is there still yet another gap that you need to fill? Whatever it is, why did those successes work? What was the significance around them? Do you need to look at anything with that success to make it better or work better to continue it on? Is it a new system that you're going to need to look to build? Perhaps there are boundaries that you set too, making sure that you honor those and then decide, are you going to continue to uphold them over the next 12 months? So a lot of the time when you're looking at this, it can also be prices that you raised and clients still said yes. You realize that you're valuable enough to do that. And then you go deeper and maybe you look at your margins now and were your profits richer because your prices were higher or not. And that might look into some of the lessons that we're going to go through, but all of those little details really, really matter. So you want to understand not just the successes on the surface level, but why they were a success. And then what are those data points? And then are these really good clues for you to build on and amplify over the next year? Now, next are the failures, or maybe the misses, the things that didn't go so well. For me, I talked about that in the beginning. I screwed up myself. There was a lot there that I wanted to do. I didn't do. It was my fault for not blocking the time, but my fault more importantly for running too many meetings, not asking for help enough, and avoiding hard conversations where I really needed my team to level up in a way that they didn't, but they couldn't know they needed to level up without me saying something. So that's on me. And a line that I like to say a lot actually in business is that if something isn't going well or there's something wrong in the business, it's my fault. And how do I want to fix it? So even if it is an employee who is not rising to the level of my expectations, it's still my fault. So it's on us as the leaders to navigate how we can solve that, who can help us with that, and is there in fact a coaching gap that we just missed? Did we make too many assumptions? Did we not communicate well enough? Were we in fact the bottleneck, the chaos creator, and we didn't realize it? Are we asking our team for feedback enough, and are we accepting of that feedback? It is hard to hear some truths sometimes, right? I'll own that. I don't like to hear negative things about me, but man, is it helpful because it allows me to digest and then decide how to proceed. And we can make the choice as to whether or not we want to do something about it. We may disagree, or we may say, that's nice you think that way, but your work-life balance isn't my problem. So we're still going to need to do this. And if you can't do this or you can't rise to these expectations, maybe they're not a fit for your team. But usually there is something to tweak, process, improve on, and especially with yourself, a way that you can lead better and empower your team in a way to be more effective, more impactful. And you want to ensure, at least for me anyways, that they absolutely love their job. They enjoy coming to work and showing up. So think about, where did you miss the mark this year? What are some things that could have gone better? And again, be careful not to beat yourself up here, but just write down the facts. What did you say you would do that you didn't execute? I've got a list. And where did you drag your feet? What are some of the things you procrastinated on? And I would encourage you to sit in that a little bit too, and just ask, why did you procrastinate on that? Is it something deeper than the surface level that you actually didn't recognize before? So, and this could even be part of your circle, frankly. It could be that you're just not surrounded by the right people. You may have energy drains in your life that you need to eliminate. So think about your top misses, or their flops, if you will. What did you learn? And then I want you to decide in a concrete way, what will you do differently moving forward? So these are some hard lines in the sand that you are not going to allow to bleed into next year, especially if some of your misses had to do with the finances and the money. It is time to throw in the flag, ask for help. Maybe you need a fractional CFO, a bookkeeper. You need to ask your pros more questions. Like if you have a CPA, a bookkeeper, your financial advisor working for you, they work for you. So ask them questions. You're not putting them out. I say this to our clients all the time. If you don't understand the story behind your number intimately and the return on every dollar that you're spending, and you aren't understanding in a way that you can digest it, that these pros are explaining it to you, it's their fault, not your fault. So you got to be comfortable with asking more questions. And if you don't feel warm and fuzzy or educated or empowered by the conversations you're having with your pros, get new pros. They're out there. I promise you that. And we are happy to help you with these conversations and navigating it and diving into the numbers, helping you evaluate the right professionals. I've been in business now for almost 15 years, and we have vetted some of the best. And we also love to collaborate with other professionals too. So your team must be collaborating on your behalf, and you have to understand those numbers. And then importantly, look at your cash flows. When has a cash flow been a crunch for you? And can you maybe tweak your systems, how people are paying you, timing on things, changing your contracts? Again, now is a really good time to look at all of that so that you can maybe get paid sooner, have better cash flow processing. Cash is king. So you want to make sure that you're always flush with that and not hitting these bottlenecks that maybe jammed you up over the last year. So, and maybe better upfront contracts with your clients as well. All things to think about. Next are patterns, habits. What you tolerate becomes your culture, and your culture is everything. So are there some things that maybe have been happening that you haven't had the energy to address that need to be addressed? Make a note of that to talk about it at your team meeting or your annual planning meeting, or maybe just hold a meeting if you don't have one scheduled. It is so important that any patterns going on within your organization, if they're good, we celebrate them, but if they're bad, we kill them right away, because it can become a poison within your people. So that is one thing. And then others are little habits. What are some of the things that you've done this year that actually have been great? Maybe you were super disciplined with your networking, or you refined your systems and now you're on point with your follow-up or personal touches, or maybe you're giving your employees handwritten notes every month and it's gone really well for their productivity. And these patterns or habits can be anywhere. If it's not your business, maybe it's your money, your personal finances. Perhaps you found yourself avoiding or ignoring because you're intimidated or overwhelmed. Maybe it's in your calendar where you're constantly running late because you're overbooked, or you're not putting good boundaries on your meetings where they're running over. It could be at home. You know the deal. Whatever it is, write it down, think about it, and then decide what you're going to keep or kill. Do that keep or kill exercise. What's working well? What didn't work well? Where do you maybe need to put some parameters, boundaries, rules, whatever the case may be? But most importantly, you want to create solid systems moving forward where you can kill any of the stuff that bled into something that didn't work well, and then create really good habits, routines, patterns around everything else, and then put mechanisms in place to make sure that happens. Next on the list here is your people. So this is people on your team, of course, but then also coaches, mentors, other advisors, and your inner circle. I just did a post on this actually on my personal Instagram about proximity matters. Like, it matters more than we probably want to admit, but the people you surround yourself with are going to be a direct reflection of your success, of who you're becoming, of how you feel. It is so significant. So it is a great time to do an energy evaluation and where are you hanging out? Who are you hanging out with? And are the people you're hanging out with pushing you to be better? Are they holding you accountable? Are they believing in you when you don't believe in you? Are they showing up when things get messy, when they get hard? Are they loving you when times are tough or things are ugly? Are they also calling you out on your shit, having those hard conversations? Like, I never want to be surrounded by yes people, but are they also ambitious? Are they driving toward the same things that you want to drive towards? Are they a little nuts? And when you're around them, pay attention to your energy. Do you get excited, motivated, empowered? You feel really good. The best way I can explain that is, you might be like me, a little introverted, and you don't feel like going to an event, and it's an act of God to get you there. You don't want to go, but you're there. And then after you leave, your cup is full. You're energized. You loved it. You have so much energy, and you're like, yes, I am glad I went because those are my people. They made me feel good. So you want to think about that. And this is as much as your team too. You don't want an employee where you're like resenting or there's resistance there. You don't want to engage with them. You don't want to interact with them because they drive you nuts. Like, maybe get to fire that person or have a coaching conversation, but this is your business. You don't want to feel like an imposter in your business, or there is an imposter in your business, or like you're walking on glass or eggshells. I've had that employee before. That employee sucks. Get rid of them. So pay attention to your team, your people. Are they performing at their best? Do you have some C players on your team that you really need to start stacking your bench and get rid of? And as you're evaluating your people, your circle, keep in mind it is healthy to have seasons. It is okay to put relationships on pause, to fire them, to find new ones. So just because you have history with someone doesn't mean you need to keep that person in your life forever. Your energy is so fragile. It's so precious, and it really does impact your every move and everything that you do, how you act, how you prepare, and how you show up for others too. So important. And then clarity is kind. So clear is kind. This is such an important quote because you may also be holding back from some of these hard conversations with very significant, important people in your life, but maybe it is team members who are not really doing the things that you want them to do, but you're not sure how to address it. If you're not clear, they can't fix it. Even as much as like for your partner, you got to have these conversations so that the people, like maybe your partner that you're potentially stuck with, you're improving that relationship to improve your energy. So look at your circle. And then if there are gaps or people you're missing or people you want to replace, it's a great time to start interviewing, And what I mean by that is perhaps it is your advisors. Maybe you really do need a new CPA that hears you better, that understands, or maybe you outgrew your old CPA because your business has changed. Maybe you need someone to do your books finally, or a financial advisor that really understands entrepreneurs or leaders, or they just listen to you and they're willing to collaborate and do all of the things, right? And I think that is something that we do well. And I certainly pride myself on is like, I am not just an advisor who checks the box and manages assets, but like we are touching and talking through with you, not only your finances, but how you want your life to be and making sure that that happens. We're doing an extreme amount of tax planning and coordinating and working with your other advisors, your finance team, your CPA, to make sure that nothing is being missed. And we're not also just planning in a silo for today, but everything big picture. So opportunities are never missed, but then what you want to achieve in your personal personal life aligns with your business, and everything together is working in unison, and you've got that flywheel spinning. You also want to make sure that you are not in a position where one of your advisors makes you feel less than. You don't want to feel like you're talked down to. You don't want to feel like you can't ask questions. The ability for you to ask questions and get clear answers is critical in your ability to grow your business in a profitable way, in a way that you feel confident and to not be stuck. So ask yourself the questions, ask the hard questions, do the hard work, because the people of everything that I talked about today are probably the most critical component of where you're going in the future. I promise you that. You need the right support system. And I'd rather have a few friends that are real, true, authentic. I know I can count on them for anything. I know that they're going to be there through thick, through thin. They're going to call me out. They're going to inspire me, than have all of these friends that are super surface level and behind my back, they're saying probably bad things about me or the fact that I'm nuts or whatever, who knows. And I know that there's people out there doing it, but I am okay having friends that maybe are 4 instead of 20 to have that quality. It's so huge. So please evaluate that within your friends, your mentors, your advisors, and importantly, your people, your team. And then also, with your team too, and this is part of what I'm actually evaluating is on my employees, who grew, who did really well, how can I celebrate that? And then who needs maybe some more coaching, and what didn't they do well at this year? So that way I can make sure that I am giving them the tools that they need to succeed. I want to make sure that if there's someone on my team, they're growing personally, professionally, and I am doing everything in my power to get the best out of them because I know they're brilliant. I want to see their full potential. So this is a really, really good gut check to go through to evaluate. And then next, I want you to set your priorities. So out of everything, we have so many limited resources as far as our time, our energy, our money, and capacity, right? So what are your top priorities now moving forward into the next 12 months? Taking the lessons that you learned, the things you want to leave behind, the things that worked really well that you want to move forward. What are your priorities going to be in your business, your life, your money, your relationships? What are those going to be? And then you can start to look at the goals, okay? Because if you don't know what your priority is, it's going to be hard to have specificity around the goals that you want to create. And that really bleeds into yourself, right? Evaluating yourself and making sure that when you write these goals down, you are going to commit to the habits and behaviors that you need to take to achieve them, because the goal sets the direction. The habits and the behaviors make it happen. Without those, your goal is literally a wish. So are you going to commit to not making excuses, to not procrastinating, to asking for help, to hiring the right people, to firing the wrong people, and really do a personal reflection and ownership over what you're fabulous at, what you're good at, your zone of genius, and then where do you need support in some of your weaknesses, some of your weak points? None of us can achieve great things without help and support. Remember that asking for help is a gift, it's a superpower, and it really just helps you accomplish things a lot quicker. So that should be helpful. All of these things, as you really start to think about the next 12 months, your priorities, what you want to accomplish, your goals, those BHAGs, and keep in mind that when you write those goals out, that the habits, things, and the behaviors, the tactics that you will need to do every day, every week to hit them, there's a plan behind that. And then it should also help you create specific KPIs for your team to help with those goals that are the goals around the business. Okay. And you may even want them to help you with those KPIs or the how to with the goal in your planning meeting, depending on what your business goals are. I find a lot of times it's great when we brainstorm together and really help solve the problem because they have great insights. It's my job to come up with the vision. I want them to help with the implementation, the action, the execution. If I had to do all those things, nothing would ever get done. That's why I'm the visionary and the leader. So I hope this was helpful as you start to think about the next 12 months, as you reflect on the last 12 months and all of the incredible things that you accomplished and the more incredible things that you will accomplish moving forward. Do not, please, for the love of God, do not wait until January. Do this right now. Block time because you are are worth it. You are worthy of it. Your people deserve it. You deserve it. So do it. Have fun with it. Get creative. And if you need support, if you need help in any of the areas involving your business, the decisions, the strategy, or the financial part, please make sure that you are reaching out for help. That is what you're here for, to guide you. I will also make sure that there are links in the show notes to some resources that you may also find very helpful as you work through this practice. So until next time, my powerhouses, continue to be courageous.